managing conflicts in relationship.
Helps me a lot
Yes.
to navigate. It's become so easy.
You have to change. This is not a good way to be.
Create that atmosphere for the man or for the partner to be himself or to be herself.
Yes. You're a liar. You are a liar. And then he would just not talk to me.
You did.
Silent treatment.
You did practitioner of
terminological inexactitude.
Inexactitude. One day. How are you?
I'm very well. Managing conflicts in relationship is our hot topic today.
That can't be avoided.
No.
There's
in
no
fact,
relationship.
there's no
conflicts.
There's no relationship. Friendships, boyfriend, girlfriend, courtships, whatever you want to call it.
Relationships at work.
Relationship at work. First year of marriage.
First year of marriage. Let's talk about that. Let's hone in on first year. How was your first year of marriage? I know you have.
I had a long
part 1 and part 2.
Yes, I had a long courtship. So I'm going to talk about. Let me talk about part 2. And part 2, it means that my second marriage. This is a running joke when we're talking about, because there are things to be learned from the first year of marriage, the part 1, 2. But there's also some to be learned from part 2.
Yeah. So, and sorry for putting it. And because I'm laughing doesn't mean that I'm trivializing divorce.
Oh, no, I don't think so. You know, you'll notice Bachelor and I, we laugh a lot. Humor is part of how we are able to talk about difficult topics. Don't forget, some of these things are already taboo. So if we're using, sometimes we're laughing. I remember somebody commented to me and say, you people, you like to laugh so much. These are serious matters.
Yes.
And I said, well, we have to get through it in a way that is also comfortable for us, because we are also talking about things that are taboo, used to be taboo to us.
To be honest, my family cannot believe how much I'm sharing and the fact that I'm sitting down and talking about all this.
Really?
Because I am private.
Yes.
Private in the real sense of it.
Well,
I do not share stuff.
Yeah.
However, I'm doing this for a purpose. I've been led to do this.
Yes.
It wasn't by chance that we've been brought together.
Yes.
And
the collaboration.
If it's just one person.
Yes.
That is able to pick up something you say or something I say and run with it to improve them, to improve their relationship.
And the interesting thing is, have you found that people have been actually coming to you outside of this setting to help them with different things?
Yes.
And we've been growing as we're talking to you and sharing with you. We're also growing from it. So let me talk about part 1 and part 2, because I know you're interested. Because when I did part 1, managing conflict in the first year of marriage, I was a much younger person.
Okay.
So for the younger people out there, I was maybe 24, 25.
Okay.
And so part 2, I was age 49.
Wow.
So
quite a lot of experience.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so let me talk about briefly part 1.
Interesting.
The first year of marriage in a new couple, young, not much life experience other than they've done the usual things that people have done. It can be traumatic, because don't forget, you've been living at home, maybe with your family or with your mom or your dad, and then you've just moved in, certainly from a woman's perspective, with a man. I know that these days, they are doing other things now, like living together before you marry, but I wouldn't usually recommend it, especially for the ladies who really want to get married, who want a wedding, who want that acknowledgement, because statistics have shown that if you've been living with somebody before you marry them, unless, of course, you're Prince William and Kate, where money is not your problem, the likely chance of actually getting that wedding is very slim.
That's got a different,
I know,
a completely different view to that.
Okay, let's pack that for another time. Should you live with your partner in the future? Should you live with them before you marry or not? Remind us, we're going to come back to that. For the purpose of this podcast,
Yeah.
we're talking about the first year of marriage. That's the
Yes.
one where you have legally married, traditionally married,
Mhm.
some sort of recognition of your union.
Mhm.
So you're coming with both your traumas.
Mhm.
Because I remember in that first year, in my own family, we shout when we're talking. Everybody shouting in the house, shouting. And that's just normal. And that one actually cut through, part one and part two, because I remember when I took my husband to America to meet my family, part two, everybody was shouting and the man was feeling traumatized. Till this day, my son always says, Mom, why are you shouting?
My daughter said to me yesterday, Dad, you know,
So that's just like a practical thing, but there might be other things. For example, in the first year of marriage, you have to decide how you're going to manage money. Are you going to have one joint account to put all the bills? And then, or are you going to have separate money? And then one person pays for one thing and another person.
these are difficult topics to.
Oh,
to
yes.
navigate.
And these things can cause conflict. Is a higher earner going to pay more of the bills, or are you going to just do straight 50-50 and then one person will have more money? That can even cause resentment. In our first marriage, what we did was each person contributed towards a pot. So that's finance. You have to make a decision about that. It won't just happen. And sometimes people have just got married. They've spent quite a lot of money. Certainly in this day and age, both husband and potential partners put money in towards the wedding as well as the parents. If the parents want to have quite a lot of Nigerian weddings that we know of, they have three parts to it. There's the traditional parts, there's the white wedding, there's the stories for other days, which can be very expensive. So finance and money can bring a lot of conflict in first year of marriage if it's not handled well. So you need to think about that before you start living with anyone, even if it's just friends that you are sharing a house with, because it's quite common now, house shares. Although I appreciate that everybody might have their own meter to pay their bills. Then the actual consummation of the marriage can be problematic, depending on what you are coming with, what kind of baggage that you're coming with. Some people have been told that you only have sex when you want to make a baby. Some people don't switch off the light, you don't switch off the light. All those things. I mean, I don't know whether you experience some of that. How you do the washing up, how you do the cleaning, who's the messy one, who's the tidy one. I put my hand up, I'm the messy one.
Even going to the toilet seat up, toilet seat down,
Toothbrush. And so in my first marriage, I was the untidy one and my ex-husband was the very neat one. In fact, it became a joke when we had Micah, my son, because he always remembered, he used to say to me, Mom, we had a house where we had enough. That was the other thing as well. It might be helpful for each person to have their own space because there'll be conflict if one person likes things tidy. So I had my own space, a room, and my ex-husband had his own space. And my son used to say, oh, Mom, when I used to go into my mom's space, everything was everywhere. When I went into my dad's space, everything was orderly. But I had a way of enjoying both space. So it's also about working out what's negotiable and what's not negotiable so that you don't end up fighting all the time. Kitchen. Some men are not allowed in there. What's that about?
Very, very true. It's funny. I'm hearing all this. In my first relationship, we did not even talk about all this at all.
Okay.
Like we just went into it and just let it pan out. It was like,
So was there lots of arguments?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's why there's a part two. Because the part one.
Part one meaning first marriage.
First marriage.
Yeah.
We went in naive. I've recognized, that you are coming with you. Everybody has a baggage.
Yes.
You are and you are moving in together with baggages.
Yes.
So it's how you navigate.
So physical and emotional baggage.
Everything.
Psychological baggage. I mean, we talked about mental health.
Yeah.
Only
Psychology. So how do you navigate that? So rather than sit down to have a chat about it, to talk about it, it was like
you just acted it out.
We acted it out.
So there was a lot of gbas-gbos.
And a lot of on my part, because I'm the, I withdraw into my shell, and you withdraw, and then you start dwelling, then bit by bit animosity develops, and then it expands, because if you do not handle that conflict there and then, before you know it, that small thing
has exploded.
Oh yeah, it becomes big, and it will be the smallest. It could even be a tiny joke said,
and it's triggered of something in the other person.
Triggered of, and then there wasn't, there weren't
no counseling.
Counseling.
How old were you? How old were you when you did your part 1?
When I did my part 1, 24.
Yeah, about the same age, 24, 25. Who counsels you about how to get married? I mean, and that's even interesting.
Yeah, first and foremost, I was born here, came here,
here being the United Kingdom.
In United Kingdom in my 20s. However, back home in Nigeria, counseling, who talks about counseling? Counseling would have been to meet an older person.
That's true.
An uncle or an auntie or a big brother. Or counseling meaning, having a proper, heart-to-heart discussion with someone that you do not know.
Yes.
That would be objective.
That would be objective, yes.
It's completely different.
It was completely different. And where did you get the idea that this became important and it was a deal breaker? Because clearly the relationship didn't work. Do you think just going into it like that was part of it without thinking about what could have been non-negotiables? And when I say non-negotiables, I'm talking about things that would be a deal breaker. Because you need to have your values and know, okay, is being untidy a deal breaker or not? For some people, it's a deal breaker because they can't think. And if you don't have enough resources to have separate spaces, you have limited spaces. That's the problem.
And in my part 1, the space was tiny. Before we moved into a bigger space.
Okay, so you were on top of each other, on top of it.
Which I'm not against, because that can bring a couple closer. You get to understand each other, which worked. But at the same time, it brought out so much. It brought out so much, and
so we were both kind of reacting all the time. And were you able to sit down and talk about what's this about?
When it got to the point of sitting down, I think there were already some deep-rooted resentments.
Yeah. And that could be baggage from previous relationships, dynamics in families. Definitely. And this is why this is very important. Thank you so much for that, because it didn't work. Do you think if you had more time to have worked out what your different preconceived ideas, let's just say like that, because sometimes we do that. We have expectation of each other that we never spoke about. We just thought the woman will be the one doing all the cooking every day, for example, and the man likes fresh food. He doesn't want the one that you have cooked the night before and put in the fridge. That was one of my part 1 experiences. My ex liked fresh food.
Oh my God.
Nicely made. And he couldn't cook.
Wow. That must have been
and that was quite traumatic for me. Because
fresh food every day in the United Kingdom.
Oh yeah.
And both of you work?
Oh yeah. So that was something I had to get used to, and it's quite a traditional thing. And some women still are doing that now, regardless of who's working. The woman is in charge.
As long as they enjoy doing it. If they are doing it to satisfy the other person, you are gathering resentment without you knowing it.
Exactly. So these are some of the conflicts that happens in the first year. It takes, in fact, I think the first year of living together in that relationship is going to be potentially, lots of things that might cause conflict. So fasten your seatbelt and be patient.
That is the strong word. Be patient.
Be patient
And
with each
understand
other.
and be intentional with each other.
Yes.
Knowing fully well that both of you are from different backgrounds.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of compromising that has to be done.
Yes. I remember my part 2 now. Let me bring this one, was really fun. Part 2, age 49. Moved in together. The part 2, I'm doing it a little bit more differently now, not for everyone. But by the time I had my part 2, I had a flat already myself. My husband has his own flat. So we do share some time together. Maybe we'll stay together like a week, 2 weeks at a time. And one of the things, actually, this was already manifesting before we married. I had a lot more responsibility than I was also a guardian to 2 young children. So I had 3. I had my own son and 2 other children. And it involved sometimes weekends, which used to eat into our private time to go to school to pick them up because the 2 were in boarding schools. At one point, all 3 of them were in boarding schools. To cut a long story short, my husband would be fuming about my heavy diary because no, he would just be moping, moody. And I said, well, what is it? I've told you my diary beforehand. We can't go together. He said, oh, no problem. You have to do what you have to do. And then he would just not talk to me.
You didn't.
Silent treatment.
You didn't know that.
I just picked up that he was moody. And then guess what? He won't even eat on top of the butter.
Wow.
And he loves to cook. So I had to confront him. And this is after we've already, no, we hadn't, yes, we had done counseling. This is after we've done counseling. And this second time counseling was with lots of couples. But some things you can talk about it. It's when you are in the situation that your feelings just come out. You don't even intend to be.
You can't control emotions.
You can't. But what you can do is now sit back and say, what is happening? So that's what I had to do. So I said, Maridi, remember when we were counseling, they said we should not go to bed with our anger. What is it? Because I've seen that you've been quiet. And you are not eating. He said, when I'm upset, I don't eat. Hey, I said, you go angry. So what am I saying? Because of the maturity, we were able to sit down and talk about it. He said, I've always been like that from childhood. That was actually what he said. He said, when I'm upset, I just go into my shell. I'm quiet. I've always been like that since childhood. And this is like a 50-something-year-old man.
That is one word that I, myself and my wife, we had to talk about. I've always been like.
So we had to talk about I've always been like. And I said, well, I appreciate that. Now, women in particular, let me talk to my sisters. When a man opens up about something so delicate like that, please don't throw it back to his face and say, you have to change. This is not a good way to be. You have to change because men don't open up easily. Look at what Baba Shala said at the beginning of this podcast. He said, this is a brave thing for him to be doing.
Yeah, it is.
And fortunately, your family are actually encouraging it. So I said, really? Okay. And I said, let's talk about it. Because if we're going to be together till death do us part, every time you're upset with me, I can't deal with silent treatment. I hate silent treatment. I can't deal with tension in an atmosphere. So everywhere I am, I try and create harmony if possible. So that was it. We had to talk about it. And by the time we talked, we were talking for like 2 hours. So much other things came out about his childhood that made him retreat into silence.
The benefit of talking.
Yes, because when he was younger, he couldn't express his feelings. Number one, he's a man, African man from Ghana. He's a military man. He used to be in the military. So all these things compounded his emotions. So when he's now in his adult, and this is his second time marriage, I wonder how much silent treatment he potentially displayed in his first relationship. So silent treatment, for those who'd like to do silent treatment, silence, sometimes they say silence is golden, Abi.
Yes.
Is it really? When you are in a relationship,
Silence is golden because
you can use it
Oh yeah.
intentionally.
Intentionally. It sends a message. Excuse me. I do not intentionally pelt out silent treatment, but I retrieve to reflect.
And then you come back to
and
it.
then I come back to it. I find a way of coming back to it, you know. And because I'm much older and I'm much matured and I'm much in tune with, I'm a Christ follower, I'm much in tune with the Holy Spirit, helps me a lot.
Yes.
To navigate, it's become so easier for me.
So if you don't want too many conflicts, because the conflict is inevitable, it's actually how you deal with it that's the important thing.
It is.
Use silence to reflect rather than
to punish.
Yeah. And it's okay to be quiet. You know, my husband is a reflector, and I've learned to tap into that. So instead of me, I'm the talker. I say, "Oh, my baby, it looks like you're thinking about something. Is there anything you'd like to share?" And create space for that talk. When you're both busy out working, where's the part? When you go and your phone, my peoples, that's another thing. The phone is such a distraction. It doesn't allow us to deal with conflict. Yeah. We'll go on to TikTok to go and see what influencers are saying about how to deal with conflict. You are not in their situation. Most of them are telling you porkies as well. That's lies. Yeah. What was the word that we learned for lying?
Oh, lying is practitioner. A practitioner of terminological inexhaustible. Inexactitude. Practitioner of
terminological inexactitude. That's a very long word in life.
Yes.
Don't be a liar.
Don't be.
Please, in whatever relationship you're in, these things happen. Don't go and listen to lies, and don't be a liar. Because by the time you're listening to lies, which brings me to this issue of knowing what your partner is capable of and working with it. It could be a liar.
So how do you navigate that?
And that might be because they're scared. Because people tend to lie when they feel like you can't handle the truth. And when you can't handle the truth. So when you know your partner is lying, don't say, "You're a liar. You are a liar." That is not the way to resolve.
Create that atmosphere for the man or for the partner to be himself or to be herself.
Yes. This is it. That's one of the things I had to learn to do, that if I feel like you're lying, and when you've been with someone towards the end of that first year, you begin to learn enough about them to know when they're telling you, when they're a practitioner of inexactitude. Long word for in their line. You'll find that that's what that MP should have said to Boris Johnson, rather than calling him a liar, being thrown out of Parliament.
Yes.
Anyway, English language is very complicated.
It is. So there's going to be part 2.
Oh, definitely. How do you deal with when you know that your partner is lying?
Yeah.
How do you deal with it? Don't call them a liar.
Yeah.
Listen to the lie that they've told. And especially women, we're very intuitive.
Yeah.
We know when our partner is lying. But how do we deal with it?
Definitely.
Part 2. Yeah.
Part 2.
Definitely. Let's deal with that. And let us have your thoughts on this. How do you deal with conflict in your own relationship? It could be that you're not yet in your first year of marriage, but you are already arguing. Is that a red flag? Not necessarily.
We talk about
but we'll see that. In part 2, we'll see that.
Yeah. Thank you
for watching. Subscribe, like, share. And go and watch our other content. Some of these things we've dealt with it in past. I believe we have. Is it this way or this way? We'll show you. we'll be signing you to some of the other podcasts that we've done on this subject. And look out for the part 2 of this, managing conflict in your relationship.
Thank you. Excellent.